Morning. Wow, that worked. I didn't even have to point out Ned. Well, welcome everybody. Good morning to you. Glad we have a nice turnout here this morning. I suspect all of you received the email from Rebecca. So I'd like to open with a word of prayer. Gracious God, as we gather this morning, we hold in our thoughts and hearts the Lamont family, and we pray for Rebecca's speedy recovery from her health issues. We ask that you grant us all some extra energy as we support our Trinity Church in this time. We also hold up our speaker this morning and the good work that he's done and that he'll talk about this morning. All these things we pray in Christ's name. Amen. Well, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker this morning, and obviously all of you know Peter Barrett. So he needs no introduction, but I am going to remind you of a few things. Peter grew up in Ohio. He's a good Buckeye. Went to Denison in Columbus, Ohio, Granville, actually. Peter then pursued his medical education in Ohio. He came to Atlanta in 1986 and practiced here in Atlanta until his retirement in 2023. Peter has done everything that you can do at Trinity Church. One thing in particular, Peter served as the chair of the TELC board. I think I'm correct in that. I know that position is very interesting and challenging. He's done many other things as well in connection with Trinity. I had tried to get Peter's daughter, Mackenzie, to come down and introduce him, but she came up with an excuse. And so without further ado, I will turn things over to Dr. Peter Barrett.
Thanks, Bert. Thanks, Bert. Grab my notes. I usually don't look at notes too much, but glad to be here this morning. How many of you been to Haiti? I know Tom's been to Haiti. Anyone else? That's right. Couple reasons for this talk. One is our mission venture in Haiti, of course, is one of our big funding areas from this church. So I think it's always important to revisit it on a regular basis. And also a number of people, come up to me and said, my gosh, the situation in Haiti, how can we be giving money there? What's going on? Is there any functionality to the community there that we serve? And I think you'll hopefully see by the end of what I'm going to talk about today that things are remarkably still moving ahead and day to day, and it's really an amazing thing. I serve I wear two hats here today. I've been to Haiti 3 times on mission trips with Trinity. I currently serve on the Mission Council here at Trinity, but I also serve on the board that you'll see here, Gonave Haiti Partners, which Trinity actually, this partnership is a group of churches mainly and other organizations that were all sort of fragmented in the Southeast for years, giving money and time and traveling to Haiti. And a number of years ago, it was realized that it'd be much better to coalesce into a single unit, which has been done. And Trinity actually takes their funding and it goes through the partnership because we have a way to get money down there, which, as you can imagine, has been a challenge, with the political chaos going on the island or on the mainland. Just to remind you a little bit of the geography here, the country of Haiti is shown here, and off the coast from Port-au-Prince is the island of Gonave, and that's where our funding goes. And to get there is, well, the airport is closed currently, but when we used to go, and we all are hoping that someday and do believe we will be back, we would fly into Port-au-Prince and jump on a bus. Getting through customs and getting through the airport was, as Tom and Craig can attest to, is a crazy event. We went, I mean, I'll interject with I've got a million stories about Haiti. I could go on, but I remember one time I was sort of leading the group and we end up and we're taking musical instruments down and we're trying to check them through, and this guy was giving us all sorts of grief and he wanted money, and I wasn't about to give him money because, you know, you start shelling out money, man, you got a problem, because they know the American over there's got money. And you stand out in Haiti. I mean, if you're 6'5" and Caucasian male, believe me, you stand out. You walk down the streets in the back of Anse there, and it's kind of, Mackenzie actually has been with me twice. She was sort of my assistant in the medical clinic, but you'd hear blanc, blanc. And it wasn't a term of a derogatory term, but it was like, oh my gosh, a white person. Some of these kids had never seen a white person. And we were sort of like, who are these people? And some of it, we would show up with duffel bags and the kids told us that when they saw us come into the compound with our duffel bags, they figured they were full of money, cash for them. And it's like, wow, you know, so it's interesting to learn this stuff. But the first time I go, we get on the bus and we're driving around the coast there to get to a ferry. When we go out to this island of Gonave in the city of Anse, which is the main city on the island. And we're on the bus about 2 minutes and there's a police vehicle in front of us, and they stop and some guy's running into the bushes and 2 police officers jump off with automatic machine guns and go running after him. And I thought, great, I'm going to be here 5 minutes. I'm going to see a guy gunned down in the street. Well, nothing happened, but it's like, okay, this island or this country is interesting. But you take the ferry out to Anse. The first time Mackenzie and I went, we're sitting there on the top and it's sunny, and we look over and we thought, well, that's an interesting cargo, because a lot of stuff has to be taken over from the mainland to this island. They can't exist solely by themselves. And it was a casket, and someone had died on the mainland, but they wanted to go home to be buried. So that was interesting little part of my start to my first time there. Just a little bit about the current situation on the Haitian mainland, mainly in Port-au-Prince. It's absolutely chaotic. And, you know, someone, Dave said to me, are you going to talk about the current situation? I said, no, I'm going to reference it just to let you know in the background of what we're doing on Gonave. This is going on in Haiti, but there's really no functioning government. If you read the history or study the history of this country, Haitians have been under somebody's rule for 400 years, and they've been abused, they've been brutally ruled, terrible dictators. I mean, in our lifetime, we've seen that. Currently, they have no real functioning government. They have a totally unstable economy. It's basically gang rule. There was also always a big gang influence in Port-au-Prince. Any corner block, you'd see some guy sitting on a corner. He was the main dude, and he had all of his minions running around, and they were collecting money or enforcing their way or whatever. But currently now it's with guns, and they estimate that maybe 5,000 more gang-related deaths were reported, probably more in Port-au-Prince last year. Haiti, the country has 11 million people, and they calculate that over 700,000 have been displaced by the violence. The airport is closed. You can't really get off the island. It's not safe to. They have pirates in the water surrounding, commandeering any vessel that they can, stealing what's on it, usually shooting and killing the people that are on the boat. Doctors Without Borders was one of the last little bastions of healthcare there. They left. They weren't safe. They couldn't get anything done, and they've left. And the U.S. government has basically said U.S. citizens don't travel to Haiti due to this kidnappings, crimes, civil unrest, limited healthcare. As you can imagine, it's a mess. Here is where we do our work. This is the island of Gonave, and you can see the town Anse-Galles in that top right-hand side of the island. And that's where the ferry goes into. The island of Gonave is 39 by 7 miles in size. There are about 110,000 people that live there. Anse-Galles has a population of maybe 60,000, so it's a decent sized city there. So we fund the school there. I'll show you some pictures and talk about that in a minute. And if you go up the mountain to the city right below it, called Nouvelle Cité, and those that have been there that took that ride up that mountain road, I'm not sure I'd call it a road. It was boulders and potholes and 500-foot drops off the side, and we're in this Range Rover with tires that are as big as me and trying to get up this thing. First time I went up there, I had no idea. Nobody told me. And the medical clinic's at the top of the mountain there. And it takes about, I don't know, an hour or more to get up there. And it's like you're on the roughest ride on a roller coaster you can ever imagine, and it never stops for 60 minutes. I got up there, my back was killing me. I have a bad back. My back was killing me, and I was drenched with sweat because I was so nauseated I could barely see straight. And then I went to see patients. So I learned to sit in the front seat. I learned to take a Benadryl. I learned to brace myself. I learned all sorts of things to get up that mountain. Most people go around on motorcycles. That's a little bit better because you can go around the boulders. So where does our money go in Trinity? From Trinity. Mission Council appropriates $40,000 has per year for a number of years now. I put 40,000 plus because we also raised some money from our Christmas market here that is earmarked for school lunches for the kids and teacher education, teacher salaries. One of the best jobs you can have on that island is be a teacher. They value education enormously. And you'll see some things about that in a moment. But we support at the St. Francis School, which has over 800 children. And we support the teacher salaries. I just saw the latest data. I think the total salaries for the year for St. Francis is about $50,000. And a lot of our 40 goes to that. Some of it goes to their school lunch program. This is one of their might be their only good meal of the day for these kids. And it's a product that we found that is in a packet, so it's got a long shelf life. It's beans, desiccated beans and rice and some spices. And I'll show you a picture of this. They throw it in water, they add some cooking oil, and it's stirred over an open fire in this big pot. And it's actually fairly tasty, but it's extremely nutritious. And the kids get a big dollop of that at lunch. Unfortunately, I was just on a Zoom call with Perville, who is the priest that oversees the parish of St. Francis, as well as all the parishes on the island. And by the way, that is the government pretty much on this island. It's church dominated. And you say, well, what about the violence on the mainland? Hasn't it gone out? Well, there's nothing really to steal out there. So why the gang members would come out there, they don't. Some have sought refuge, not very many, because some have been intercepted because they knew it's a small country and there's word gets out, and things did not go well for them as they tried to get out to the island. I don't know the specifics of that. That's all I'll say about that. But there aren't many guns on the island that we're aware of. There's not much violence or crime. There isn't anything to steal. Everybody's kind of in the same boat. And I also think the church-dominated presence, people are afraid. They know that their priest is watching. They know that the pathway to heaven is an issue there. So it's actually, it works. The bill, and so our money goes to St. Francis. Our funding also goes to the Bill Rice Medical Clinic, which I just referenced up the mountain there. The small island has a peak of like 2,500, so it's sea level up to 2,500 feet. And it's the Bill Rice Clinic also is run by Dr. Lazar. It's an amazing guy. And he also does mobile clinics of walking and by motorcycle. And it takes forever to get out to these outlying towns or little communities, let's say, on the island. But overall, he sees or there are patient encounters between him, between his assistant doctor he has now, which he didn't have before, about 1,000 patients a month. And they oversee about 50 pregnant patients. A lot of the clinics on the outlying communities are pregnant ladies that come in, and that's the only time they're really monitored during their pregnancies. Amazing. To have a baby, that was my deal for over 40 years, on an isolated island with minimal health care. Of course, I guess they don't really know any other way, but to me, that's terrifying. And so most of these women deliver at home. Some come up to the clinic to deliver 2, 3, 4 a month. And occasionally some go down to the city of Ansigales, where there is a hospital run by the Wesleyan Church, which is actually a pretty nice hospital. I've operated in that hospital. But Dr. Lazar is Haitian. He was trained in Venezuela. He's fluent in probably at least 3 languages. He's an accomplished musician. That was his undergrad degree. He plays guitar, he plays piano, he plays some other instrument. And he's really smart, engaging guy. We actually have just, the partnership, just put aside funding for an OB/GYN physician. Of course, that's what I would do. I'd go down and see these women that were having issues, pregnancy, gynecological issues. And we hired this doctor to be, he comes into the clinic 1 day a week. And we pay him a little over $500 a month. And we get this service, which is incredible. And the things some of these, Tom knows some of these stories, but the things I saw in Haiti over the years, you would never see in your training in this country. I was in the clinic one day with my daughter, and this is kind of a weird thing to say, but if you've ever smelled advanced cancer, there's a smell, and you never forget it. And this woman showed up. I could look at her face and go, And I said to Mackenzie, this is not going to be good. You might not want to come over here. So behind the drape, she puts down her shirt, and she's got advanced metastatic stage 4, stage 5, stage 6 breast cancer, basically a necrotic, rotting breast falling off of her body. And the son goes, what can you do for her? And I said, you can make her comfortable. And I'm an emotional guy. Those of you that know me know that. But they just look at you with this stoic look. Okay, just take her home. She's going to die of this. Yeah, well, he knew that, but he just wanted me to tell him. And I saw 2 women the last time I went, which has been a few years ago, both around 70. The people on the island, you think, they don't have any money, and half of them live in dirt floor homes. They're impeccably dressed and they're clean and the women make themselves up and they make up their hair and it's just amazing. But these beautiful women, these two, well, I'm having this bleeding. Both of them I diagnosed. Of course, I had nothing other than my hands and my knowledge, but it wasn't that hard to figure out. Probably end stage cervical cancer. When the cancer of the cervix expands, it goes out to the side of the pelvis and it creates this massive tumor and it feels like concrete. I've never seen it in this country, but I saw it twice in 5 days there. And again, the parents or the loved ones would say, well, what can we do? And I said, well, you can take her home and keep her comfortable and watch over her and her time will come. And they thank me and they leave. So, these are the people we're dealing with. People go, oh, why do you go to Haiti? I go, well, you ought to go to Haiti sometime and you'll find out why we go to Haiti and why we support these folks. They're just amazing. Dr. Lazar, under his directorship, also has these matrones, which are birthing attendants. They're not really midwives, but I'm sure they all have tremendous amount of knowledge. And they go out to the homes and assist in these home births.
Peter, what's the infant mortality and maternal mortality?
The problem with that is the statistics. And, I've been to Cuba a number of times too, and people say, oh, the statistics in Cuba are so incredible. They're better than the US. And I said, yeah, how accurate are they? I mean, who knows what's going on the island? He looks over 50 pregnancies a month. There's probably another 50 out there happening. It's 100 deliveries a month. But you know what? That's a very good question. I asked about, and in his statistics that he gives me on a quarterly basis, which are excellent. I mean, as good a report as you get from anybody in this country. I never see mortality. There's morbidity for the women that deliver. There always is. Postpartum hemorrhage and hypertension are two biggies. But you know what? I don't think, but a child that's born premature up in the jungle, you're never going to know about it. So I don't know. Now, the mainland is a total mess right now. Healthcare has crumbled, especially in Port-au-Prince. So I can't imagine what's going on there. In fact, we just did have a tragedy, though. I heard about a woman, and this is the only, how many years have I been involved with this? 15 or something. It's the only time I've ever heard of this. A woman came in and delivered. It was her second or third baby. And she delivered up at Bill Rice, up in the mountains there. And delivery went fine. And she started to bleed. And in this country, I've been involved with severe postpartum hemorrhage, who knows, a couple hundred times, maybe more. And it's an acute emergency that you've got to do some physical stuff and you've got to get medication in them and you got to just go to save their life. It's amazing. A woman can deliver a baby and you think, oh, that's pretty, mundane. It happens all the time. Well, believe me, they can bleed out in about 15 minutes and die. Well, this woman was bleeding out and they couldn't do anything. And they had two of these experienced matrones with her and some other nurses. And they didn't have enough medication. They ran out of medication because you got to keep pumping it in them. And they tried to get her down, if you can imagine this, on a motorcycle down the mountain to the hospital. And she was dead when they got down there. And it was Dr. Lazar's sister. In the background of all the horrible stuff going on, you have stuff like this happen. And there he is, he's back to work the next day doing what he does. It's like, wow. These people have learned just tragedy happens and you got to keep going. I don't know if we could do that. Up at the Bill Rice Clinic, there's also a goat farm that we have funded. They raise goats and 5 kids in the different communities get a goat every year. And they use the goat milk, obviously for nutrition. Eventually they sell the goat or slaughter the goat and have a feast. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And there's actually an agricultural center. And I was writing down, I couldn't remember what they grew. Beans, corn, eggplant, squash, bananas, tomatoes, peanuts, avocados, mangoes, and papaya. They have a director of agriculture up there. So they're farming, you'd think, don't they farm more? Well, they do, and water is a huge issue. They get a fair amount of rain. They have to collect all their rain in cisterns. But there's who gets the water, the humans, the animals, or the crops? Well, sometimes the crops are the last to get the water, but they do a pretty good job of that. So here's the school. The schools all look similar on the island. They're impeccably maintained. They're clean. There's no frills, there's no electronic anything. And well, I shouldn't say that. They do have a computer lab now at St. Francis in an old container. They outfitted and put in air conditioning using solar energy and using, I think, what's Elon Musk Skylink? I think they've got the connection there, which is amazing, right? For their computer lab. So these kids are all on laptops now. But the schools are always, every couple of, we've painted down there. They paint all the time. The colors are bright. I mean, this is the island. You see colors and laughter and all that everywhere. And one of the classrooms is right outside the dormitory, like just 15 feet across. And, you wake up in the morning, we start to get going and sort of evaluate what we're going to be doing for the day. And the kids are already being in school and they're laughing and talking and you hear the teachers. I tell you, those kids listen to their teachers. Man, the teacher says, don't do that. They shut up. It's pretty cool. And if you go out in the morning, they all amass in the school courtyard in the morning and they sing and they say a Pledge of Allegiance or something or sing their national anthem. I can't remember exactly what they're doing, but and they've all in these incredible uniforms. Everybody wears a uniform. And each school has its own specific color. So you can see St. Francis has this sort of aqua type color, but I've seen pictures of other ones, red, yellow, blue. It's kind of cool. They all have their own distinctive color. And these are the children. And I tell you, this is what they look like. They have these big smiles, these big brown eyes. All the girls have bows in their hair. And, you stand out there with them. They are totally uninhibited by you. They'll come up to you. They want to touch you. You'll be standing there, and all of a sudden, this little girl will be holding your hand. It's like, oh my gosh, this is pretty, it's just amazing. It's just, they just want to know who you are. And it's genuine. I don't think they want anything from you, but although the little kids, occasionally out on the streets, a little kid will ask you for $1 or something. It's not a big deal. But they sing, and the teachers are very enthusiastic. Teachers get training on a regular basis. These kids take this national exam. As a school, they always do incredibly well. So I want to tell you one other thing. Down at St. Francis, Trinity does not support this, although, but the Gonave Foundation does, or the nonprofit that I'm a part of. They have a professional center. This is new for the adults post high school, where they're teaching them culinary arts, hospitality, embroidery, beautician type stuff. So it's like a trade school, tile work. I mean, there is a need for craftsmen on the island. I mean, Tom and I remember the first time we went, we walked over, we were just walking around, or you said, you got to come over here. You went first. And you go, we walk across the street from the St. Francis compound. There's a guy who made coffins, and they were spectacular. They were works of art. We're looking around going, are you kidding me? You could see, think what you'd sell for those in this country. But we talked to him for a while. And so, interspersed in this community, Trinity had a friend, I don't know whatever happened to him. He was an artist, and he sold his work off the island for quite a bit of money. And he was very talented. So, it's an interesting community. This school lunch I talked about that here's the woman on the right there stirring this huge cauldron which they start in the morning getting this thing going, and it cooks and it cooks and it cooks, and you smell it, and it's like, it's great. And then they have that for lunch. Unfortunately, there is food insecurity because, again, they do have to import some of their food from the mainland, and there are these pirates out in the water there, and they confiscate the food coming in. And Pierreville said, well, they love to give these kids lunch 5 days a week. He says it's more like 3 to 5 now. So they don't have enough food. There's not starvation on the island, but they're feeling it. I mean, there is starvation on the mainland for sure. Here's the senior class for 2024. You know, people say, well, what are these kids going to do? Well, before the chaos of the political upheaval in Port-au-Prince, a number of them would leave the island. Some would go to trade school, some would go to college. Others would look for jobs, whatever. I know of one boy that this was a number of years ago. I mean, not that long ago, 4 or 5. He was a star student. He went to Port-au-Prince with the idea of getting into medical school, going to college, getting into medical school, really wanted to be a doctor. And I knew some people that were helping fund him out of their own pocket, whatever. And I lost track of what's happened to him. I mean, you lose track of what's going on in this country because there's no communication and there's no structure to anything. I know of 2 daughters of the educational director for this school that ended up going to Port-au-Prince and became nurses. There is a nursing school, which I taught a class in last time I was there, over at the Wesleyan Hospital. We have I'll show you in a minute, we have a music program now. We're teaching these kids music, their ability to maybe become a musician or to teach music lessons. So, you know, there's a number of and a lot of these kids will end up being teachers. They'll stay on the island and fan out to the different communities. A lot of these kids are not all from the St. Francis area, Anse Galais. They walk down the mountain every day. You know, think of our mayor. I just laugh when I see the school bus here in Atlanta stop at every driveway, right? Every frickin' driveway. I grew up in Northern Ohio, and you know, there's about 2 feet of snow up there right now. I walked to school every day, a mile, and my mom never took me, unless it was maybe, I don't know, a torrential downpour. I'm not sure she did then either. But these kids will walk 2 hours down the mountain and then back up the mountain in the dark to go to school here. I mean, you know, I could go on and on about this stuff. Here's the Bill Rice Health Clinic. We've got Dr. Gems, who is this new OBGYN. Never met him, just started. Dr. Lazar. We've got an ultrasound machine. That was a big deal. Women all wanted to see their babies. I diagnosed twins twice down there. You know, this woman come in for her first exam, and she's, you know, I popped the ultrasound down. You know, I can't speak. It's this Creole French language, and I can speak Spanish, but this is foreign to my ears. And I put the transducer down. I'm looking, and I just, you know, give her the thumbs up that everything's okay. They want, is her heartbeat, right? Am I pregnant? And then I did this, and she went crazy. And I said, you know, she ran out in the waiting room, grabbed her husband. I mean, it was pretty cool. There is some sense of family there, you know. One of the problems in our society, right, is this disintegration of the family unit. And they do get married, they do hang together. You know, I don't know what the actual statistics are, but a lot of men came with these women to their visits. So I thought that was pretty good. Let's see if this will play. This is a pregnant woman going to one of the clinics. So they're going out to the mobile clinics here, walking. Sometimes there's too much mud and what to even get a motorcycle through. This is pretty much what these clinics look like. They have bare bones medications. Oops.
C'est donc Charles Lazare, présent dans l'autorité, je dis, et ensemble avec
This is Dr. Lazar.
comme ça, qui s'est choisi les adeptes.
He is absolutely committed to what he's doing. It's most of their work is done on chalkboards, you know, kind of old school, which is kind of cool. All right, what's going on here? Go. Oops, so there's a picture of the goat farm. There's a picture of some of the agriculture. This is up the mountain there at where the clinic is. In that video. This was a video, I'm not sure why that didn't load. This was we've got a new program on teaching the kids music. And got 2 teachers coming over from this music school in Port-au-Prince, which apparently has a very good reputation. And they bring the instruments. And the video was showing these kids learning how to do a violin bow and to do some fingering. It was pretty cool. And this was, I saw this morning. I wanted to share this with you. Richard Floyd, our old friend, saw this on Facebook, and of this young girl playing this sort of hauntingly beautiful, little simple violin music. And he said, he talked about this picture today in church. He said, I'll never forget, I'll never forget her. In the midst of instability and scarcity, she radiated a defiant hope, a gritty determination to not let her life be swallowed up by shadows, to not let darkness have the last word. We could all use some of her spirit. Richard Floyd. And I want to end with Richard. I never went with him, so I don't know. I think he did go once, yeah. So just ending here, the people on this island that we take care of, just are amazing people. They're resilient and resourceful, they're hopeful, and all this craziness going on in their lives, they do have hope for their lives now and in the future. They're courageous, they're faithful. As I mentioned, there's laughter and music and color everywhere. And our support does make a difference. And I want you to know that Dr. Lazar, who I've just mentioned, was born in Loganoff. And he made it his career choice to get trained and come back to the island to take care of his own people. And I thought it was appropriate to end with a quote by Jimmy Carter. My faith demands that I do it whatever I can, wherever I can, for as long as I can with whatever I have to try and make a difference. Thank you.
Questions? Please use the microphone. We'll get one to you.
What is the economy there? In other words, I was listening to you talk, and we educate these people, and we're educating them to do what? Is there, how do you break out of the poverty there? Is there a way to break out of the poverty? What goes on? What makes the place run? Is it agriculture?
If you look at the model for Agape, Agape's model is to end generational poverty. And we have decided that education is the one way to get people out of generational poverty. You can't pull yourself out of a situation unless you have hopes and dreams and aspirations to go somewhere else. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a multi-generational thing. We're having tremendous success at Agape 25 years into it. We're getting kids that are going to college, going on to post-grad training, coming back to their community to work and to make a difference. I just mentioned Dr. Lazar, who came back as a physician to his own community, who's making a huge difference. A lot of these kids will end up staying and being teachers, and they will be good teachers. Some of these people they go on to these trade schools and they stay on. So it's you can look at it from one end and just lose hope and think, this can't work. Why do you put your energy into this? I choose to look at it from the other way, that little by little we chip away at this situation. And yeah, there's a huge downturn in the country right now, but it'll right itself. And you know, you've got people becoming nurses and doctors and other, and as and some of them are going to move off the island. They can't so much get away right now, and they'll send money back. And that's what the Cubans do, and that's what Haitians will do too. So it's little by little. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight.
Give us a little update on the give us a little update on the partnership, the number of churches and their
The
geographic
Loganoff
spread here in the United States.
Yeah, the Loganoff Partnership has, I'm going to forget the number, they're about, I don't know, 14 or 15 partners. Probably 2/3 of those are churches. A lot of individuals. Our board is from, gosh, our board chair is out of Virginia. There's folks out of Charleston, Atlanta. It might be somebody down in Florida, I can't remember. Our budget is around $600,000 per year. So, and it goes to all those communities on the island. So I think it's making a huge impact. And this professional center is new. They've got dreams to expand that. You know, they have architects and engineers that work on the island, and they've changed their building techniques because of the horrible earthquake, obviously, that leveled a good part of Port-au-Prince. The buildings they put up are much more substantial. They're, you know, amazingly, the earthquakes haven't hit the island very much. They do get some pretty good storms that hit there. But, you know, it's gone from a loose conglomeration with no defined mission to a pretty established group of people that have a common goal. So that I'm involved with it now, and I think that it's going to continue to improve.
Peter, I've got a question on,
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
so how do you get to the island if Port-au-Prince airport is closed? And is it safe to even get there today?
No, we don't. The answer is we don't go.
Okay.
And it is not safe to go. So, you know, years ago, we went trip after trip after trip, and we were solidifying relationships and really seeing what was going on the ground there. Pierreville is an incredible human being. He oversees all these basically, he is the leader of that island of 100,000 people. And he was going to get moved up in the Episcopal Church there, but COVID stopped that, stopped all that lateral and upward movement. Thank goodness we still have him. But those relationships were, and so, you know, the dream was to always, you know, teach somebody to fish and then let them fish, right? And so we did our thing. And, you know, it's almost like, it's like get out of their way and let them do what they can do on their own. We keep in very close contact via Zoom calls. You know, I get these reports from the clinic, which I mentioned are very well written and very specific and very detailed. So right now, that's what we're doing. You know, we electronically stay in touch. And by the way, the last call we had from Pierreville, he made a point to say, make sure you tell all your churches that I pass on my love and my gratitude. And he's been here. He's been at Trinity a couple of times. I think he spoke in one of our services, didn't he? I couldn't make that, but yeah, so that's, you can't go there right now. And I don't know when it's going to open up.
So Peter, I went that once, so not near as much experience as you have, but one of my takeaway of sorts, similar to what you were just saying about Gonave, is its own place
Yeah.
because it's this island 20 miles off the coast away from Port-au-Prince, and that the main island is chaos.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about the Port-au-Prince airport experience, but if it was just if there was a direct flight from Atlanta to Gonave, would it probably be safe, okay to go there? But because it really was a much more peaceful place. And I saw it as a blessing and a curse for them in that
Yeah.
they didn't have much interaction with the main government in the main island, it seemed. And that meant they didn't have fuel to run the generator a lot. But it also meant they didn't have the impact of the craziness on the main island.
I never felt like I was in danger on that island. I felt like when I arrived, Pierreville, kind of his umbrella was over everything, and you were under that umbrella. And there's very little violence on the island to begin with. And they knew we were bringing them hope and care and assistance and economic assistance. So I think, yeah, you could go there today and you'd be fine, but you just can't get there. You can't go by boat, you can't go by plane. Tony.
So Peter, 3 questions. I take it that this island is kind of an island of hope for the whole nation of Haiti, if you can call it a nation. And I guess this boils down to 2 questions. The Dominican Republic is more than half of that landmass, like 3/4 of it or something. Is there any help from them, or do they have any politicians that they just regard this as a disaster and don't touch it? Is that it?
Haiti is regarded as the country in this hemisphere that everybody regards as a disaster. Why in the world would I go in there, spend money, time, or effort? The mountain range between Dominican and Haiti is pretty formidable. There aren't many roads, and it is guarded like crazy. You cannot go back and forth between those 2 countries.
Wow.
And no, to my knowledge, there is no help. The UN sent a peacekeeping force of 400 Kenyan policemen. It's done nothing in Port-au-Prince. I think it's probably added to the violence, perhaps.
Okay. So then my last question is, how did you get involved in this? What attracted you the first time you went there? Would you just decide, gee whiz, I'm going to Haiti one day? How did that happen?
Well, I've done a little bit of everything in this church, and this is my community. And I've always looked for ventures that we supported. And so it was always on the shoulders of the people that came before me. And I talked to the people that had been there and what their mission had been. And there's my daughter. You can talk to her. When you go there, you just get infused by the Holy Spirit. I am not kidding you. And it is something you rarely feel in this country. Kurt Swenson's not here. He's having trouble with his knee, had knee surgery. But Kurt, you would tell me that. He goes, I feel a different way when I'm in that country. I feel like my connection with the people there is something I never get in this country. So tell you, when you drink that Kool-Aid, you want to go back and drink it again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does the Catholic Church have a financial impact, either the U.S. Catholic Church or the Vatican or anything?
The Episcopal Church that is the main force there. And they do, to some degree, not a lot. You know what? I don't know the makeup. Most of the people on Anse Glaze are Episcopal because that's the main church there. And it's like if you go to any Caribbean island, there's voodoo stuff that's this mixture. In Cuba, there was, I forget what they called it. It was a mixture of Catholicism and voodoo, and Santeria. And it was like, that was fascinating to me. So, but as far as financial assistance, I mean, to Tony's question, people just look at the island and go, good luck. It's terrible. And yet these people have hope and they keep going on. You know, it's where they're from. It's their country. There's a national, you say, why don't they all just get on boats and get the heck out of there? Well, they don't want to. It's their island. It's where they're from.
Peter, do you know where the dog and cat eating Haitians from Ohio, how they got there?
I'm going to ignore that question. Let's move on.
But there are a lot of refugees, Haitian.
Yes. Well, people have left. And
Can you just comment on people getting out and?
well, right now, John, it's incredibly dangerous to try and go anywhere. I mean, if you get on a road, that road from Port-au-Prince, where I was telling you where we got the ferry near this resort called Wahoo, a gang went out there a month or so ago, for what reason, I don't know, and massacred like 70 people, women and children included. And I think it was just to spread terror. You know, you have power through intimidation, right? So I mean, people have left. I mean, we all know Haitian folks that live in Atlanta and whatnot, but I mean, it's a very mobile world that we live in, but remarkably, people have chosen to stay, probably just because they physically or don't have the money to get anywhere.
Do I recall that Trinity dug some wells in that area?
The problem with wells is that island is so rocky, and we may have tried to do that once. It wasn't very successful. There is a natural spring that comes down from the mountain. They get a lot of their water from. It really is collecting in these cisterns, you know, on top of buildings or whatever. And then you've got to filter and clean up the water and use it. But you've got to because there are droughts, and when there's a drought, there's a big problem. So yeah, wells unfortunately haven't been real successful there on the island.
Peter, you talked about people going training as doctors and engineers. Where do they go for that training?
Port-au-Prince. I mean, in the past, Port-au-Prince I haven't researched this very much. I think they've got at least one medical school. They had some really pretty decent big hospitals. That's just so disrupted right now. But in the past, that's where they went. And then so Dr. Lazar went to Venezuela. So you get down into the Caribbean. I mean, there are a number of medical schools interspersed in the Caribbean. So they came to this country and got trained. So
We have time for one more question, and here.
There we go. Thank you, Bart. Sort of just a comment. My father was stationed there as a U.S. Foreign Service officer long before I was born. And there was a military base, a Marine base there with the fighter planes of the day that looked pretty primitive by today's standards. And this base was there because it was a footprint of ours in the Caribbean, and World War II was about to happen. So then the Marines left, and my father described how Haiti had a lot of forests and trees, and then they were all cut down for firewood and warmth and cooking, which meant that there was a lot of erosion that followed after that. So the place has been just scorched in terms of resources. And I guess I wonder if anyone have you ever seen, it probably hasn't been done, some scholar doing or writing about an analysis of how a society can plummet like that? I mean, has there been kind of analysis about the ingredients that were removed one after the next to result in this? Have you ever seen such an analysis?
Well, the analysis, again, if you look back, Haiti has had 400 years of this. People come in, it started with the Spanish, right? They come in, they take what they want and they leave, and they never give back. And it's been deforested. It gets the terrible erosion. The dirt gets eroded away. There's rock. You can't plant crops. So how do you reverse that? You need money, you need time, right? And leadership, and they don't have those things. So it's not too hard to figure out how they got to where they are. How you figure how you get out of there and get out of that situation. It's daunting.
I was interested to see on Gonave, 'cause I had read about the deforestation that you're talking about, and a lot of that is for cutting wood in order to make charcoal and then to be able to cook. Gonave was not as nearly as deforested as the mainland. Again, I think having to do with lower population demand for that. We did see some, charcoal pits of where they were being made, but because there were fewer people there, they hadn't cut down all the trees, so it was in better shape.
I want to reflect on the twins that he identified. I believe it was on the trip that I was on, because I remember being there when the father outside learned that he was going to have twins. And that was his reaction was maybe as exciting as the mother's reaction.
No, I'll take it.
And I'm not sure you saw that, but I did.
I'll take it another step further. The next time I went down, I'm walking on one of the side streets or doing something. This woman goes, rah, rah, rah. And she runs back in the house. She comes out holding both babies. I thought, praise be God, right?
Peter, thank you very much for this presentation. Just one moment before you all leave, I neglected to call on Jim Gober to tell us about next week's speaker. So if you'll just stand in place for one moment.
Our speaker next week is going to talk about Bert Broadfoot, among other things. His name is Richard Howell, and he was a sports agent. He's going to talk about the current state of college sports, talk about name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, players being paid, and all that. And ought to be really interesting. So if you can join us next week, that'd be great.
Thank you.
I was just wondering about Richard Howell.